Almost there. Almost there we go. All right. Hello and good day to everyone out there.
Almost
Welcome to
there.
Matlock Talk. This is Dave and Jake talking about all the good stuff, things that we've learned, things that we know to be at least effective. Today's episode is called Victim or Victorious. It's, for some reason, woven into the fabric of our being to seek to be the victim. And that's not, like I says, it's like kind of woven into us. And there's a lot of benefits that we get from it. Adler talks about this. That's one of our authors that we're going to explore a little bit today. He talks about what I think is one of the most interesting theories, which, a lot of people inherently and intuitively think about the reasons why people do things and the benefits. I think it was what last episode or maybe two episodes ago, Jake started talking about Adlerian theory and he started talking about the felt minus and the felt plus, what is often referred to as the vertical relationship. Because if you feel bad about yourself, one of your goals is to get the other person to feel bad about themselves, so you can get this fabricated feeling of feeling better, but it's actually not feeling better. You're just comparing yourself to somebody else and to bring them down. And that's obviously not an effective relationship. It's not harmonious. There's nothing good about it. You don't get anything good out of it except for your perception and your interpretation of what's going on. And your interpretation is obviously wrong if that's what you're doing. But the reason why I'm going into all that right now is because there is a, a foundation or some of the principles that Adler talks about, and it's the reason why, the purpose of our feelings and our behavior as a result of those feelings. And one of those is uh, being a victim. And he tries to help us understand his observation of why people will either uh, allow themselves to become sick or try to get people to believe they're sicker than they really are, or um, try to get people to see the things in their life that aren't as nice, not as good. And he tries to help us understand the benefits of those. And one of the things that people get from that is we don't have to do as much, if other people are willing to try to do things for us. And like there is actually a inherent system within our minds to get us to do uh, this victim mentality because uh, it gets us attention and it also gets people to do stuff for us. Like it's actually a type of manipulation. So that's just one of the thoughts that came into my mind. And of course, we don't want that. We want to rise above and be victorious. And that's the name of the episode. So that's what we're going to be moving into today. So I'm going to turn it on over to Jake and let
hmm
him give some of his thoughts on this subject.
it's in a nutshell, it's a paradigm. It's like um, it's simple, but it's, as some would say, hard to see through the trees. But it's simple. It's a paradigm of just putting God first and not really caring what others really care. Um, but it's ingrained in us. Um, Alder, I can never say it right. Alder, right? Alder would
No,
say,
Adler.
Adler would say that your birth order played a significance, and also it was just ingraining every human being, and I believe in this, that automatically every human being just wants significance from the get-go, and it is from birth. You want, human physical. You need your mother's milk. You need to stay warm. You need that physical interaction, right? And you need the physical touch, etc. And then as you get older, you want more social interaction, and you crave more physical things, etc. Um, and some more than others, obviously. But but everyone wants significance, and like you said, people will play that victim role, and what they do is they milk it for as much as they can, etc. And what we're if they don't what we're commanded to do is not put ourselves first,
Hmm.
but is to put God first, which is the first commandment.
Yeah, did you purposefully say milk it when and you were talking about, we need as infants mother's milk, and then you said, man, then we start to
No, I
just
didn't.
milk it. Yeah. That
I
was pretty smooth, man. You just
didn't. I
slipped
wish
that
I
right on
could.
in there.
Wish I could really say I did. I didn't, but I did not. I did not. Uh,
Yeah.
but but what I was did say on purpose was, we do have to put God first, obviously, and then the second commandment after that is to love your neighbor as yourself, which would be selfless, you know, and that's the paradigm, And if we're putting others above ourselves, then uh, and then also another verse that comes to mind is um, Ecclesiastes. I think it's an 8, 9, is it? Whatever your hand finds to do, do it with all your might.
Mhm. Nine. It's Ecclesiastes 9.
Or 9, 9.
I think it's, I can find it real quick.
And
I
that's
know
what
where it is
it's.
on the page. 9, 10. Chapter 9, verse 10. Whatsoever your hand finds to do, do it with all your might, for there is no work, no device, no knowledge, no wisdom in the grave where you are going.
Mm,
So optimistic. Man, you're gonna die anyway. So
right, right. And there was another episode where we were going to do, we were going to talk about how physical action unleashes. What was the name of the episode? Physical movement unlocking. Um,
Oh, you mean
uh,
down the road?
yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't remember the exact title, but it's pretty much the idea of how physical action and basically action produces an inner sense of completion or purpose. You know what I mean? There's a proverb that goes along with that too. Proverbs chapter 16, verse 3, I think.
I don't think that was it. I think it was. Um, Let me find it real quick. Well, I don't do it now. But anyways, physical activity unlocks. So what physical activity does is unlock depression and does so much more. So
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah. So that's I don't remember the exact title, but yeah, that's the idea, what you just said.
I'm forgetting we're alive.
Yeah, yeah, it changes things a little bit.
Does, yeah. I'm feel like we're not alive. So keep going.
Yeah. Yeah, no,
We're very casual.
well that's
The whole point.
yeah, basically, yeah. So yeah, no, no. So going back to our subject, the victim mentality, which is self-pity. And another thought or idea that comes into my mind whenever I think about this subject, the importance of this is the one of my favorite subjects is the idea. of free will, self-determinism. And I read the quote from that. It's right here. This is one of my favorite quotes, probably. And I found that much of the modern day empirical research on human behavior and human psychology and things like that, they're starting to understand more about the truth of what Adler had already decided, and not just what Adler decided, but what the scriptures talks about, because, you know, people have known this for years. And then actually, I can give you an overall weird uh, history of the way I think things play out, the way I think it's all turned out. It happens in the secular world and the overall feeling of people, and also in the world of religion. In the past, religion was inherent. It was unanimously assumed that there is a God, of course. That's just the way it's always been. And it wasn't until humanity started to develop uh, more creative ways to approach the scientific or the natural world that humanity started to worship the work of their own hands, which is pretty much foretold in the Bible anyway. And it's a big problem. But before that, generally speaking, everyone knew that there was a God, and it depends on the the person, the individual, for the most part, how people view God's role in their lives and in the world. Some people believe that God already set everything in motion, and there's nothing you can do about it. That's actually not the biblical approach, even though people interpret the Bible that way. That's not the biblical approach. There's a reason why James talks about not blaming God for if you're rich or you're poor. It's your decision how you handle what you got in life. That's what the book of Ecclesiastes talks about too. Jake quoted that just a second ago. But the book of Ecclesiastes talks about how there's things that we will never really understand, but you have to make the best of what you have. It's a blessing from God to enjoy the work of your own hands. And he, in his observations, as he's looking at the world, and that's one of the reasons why the book of Ecclesiastes is one of my go-to books when I'm trying to talk to people from a philosophical approach, is because he's making objective observation, not necessarily thinking about it from a spiritual point of view, but just looking at things and seeing them as they are. And one of the quotes is, I think it's chapter 9, and I'm not there anymore, but he says the race doesn't always go to the swift. Money doesn't always go to the person who's the most business savvy. He says that long life doesn't go to just the wise and just the healthy and whatever. And he talks about that kind of stuff, how sometimes time and chance just happens. Sometimes just different things happen. And one of the things that we have to understand is we have to make the best of what we have, what was given to us. So going back to the Adler quote, he says, "Do not forget the most important fact that not heredity and not environment are determining factors. Both are giving only the frame and the influences which are answered by the individual in regard to his styled creative power." So basically, nature and nurture is just a frame, just a ch- a what was I? Yeah, he calls it a frame, and it does influence. You can't deny the fact that what you're born with and the culture that you were raised in influences who you end up becoming. But the styled creative power, that's one of my favorite sayings, because we're made in the image of God. God created the heavens and the earth, and he made us to also be creative. We are to create our own lives, create our own reality, so to speak. And what you make of what was given to you is a part of your creativity. And so going back to Solomon, Solomon was talking about this in the book of Ecclesiastes. And he actually talks about how as soon as you start to cut down a tree, you are already increasing your chances of getting hurt by the tree. If you dig a ditch, you have already increased your chances of falling into that ditch. And so then I take that and I apply that. It's kind of interesting. That's the way life is. Being born automatically increases your chances of dying by 100%. These are just realities that we have to understand. And you could take that and live in fear because of it. I don't want to die. Or you could take that and say, I want to make the most of what I have before I die. And that's what I think Solomon is trying to do. And so uh, this idea of your life is your life. You can either be a victim to it or you can be victorious, is the whole idea. And Solomon, what I believe he is saying is you need to learn how to practice wisdom to decrease the likelihood of failure. So Ecclesiastes chapter 10 and verse 10, he makes this statement. If the iron or if the axe is dull and you do not sharpen the edge, then you must use more strength. But wisdom is profitable to direct. So the victim must be sharpened into victorious is pretty much what I'm saying. You know, there's going to be failure, and what you need to do is take that failure and learn how to become more sharp as a result of it, and grow and become better, and therefore become victorious. Because there's going to be failure. Uh, everybody's been through failure, and there's going to be things that aren't in your favor in life. Not the right family to be born and raised in. Uh, the economy. People want to blame the economy. People want to blame the president of the United States for all their problems. It's hilarious when you stop and think about it. Like, dude, get up and take care of yourself then. Well, I live in California where the cost of living is ridiculous. And people just want to mope around and blame the world for all their problems. It is tough. I'm not saying it isn't, but you make the best of what you got. You got to figure it out. So what would you rather do? Make the best of it or just feel sorry for yourself? Two people walk into a room. One has his posture, a little bit better and has a smile on his face and says, "Man, life is tough, but I'm making it." And then the next person walks into the room, he's like, going to complain and talking trash about the government. You know, which would you rather be? You know, and it's your choice. Like no one can grab you by the hair and say you're gonna be a victim. Maybe you could go back in time, but even I try to think about the horrific conditions of slavery, and that's why we talked about also uh, Viktor Frankl because he was in a horrific living conditions, and he still decided to be victorious in his own mind rather than a victim. And I try to think about people like the slaves. And that's the reason I love people like Frederick Douglass. Like he refused, it took a long time and he went through a lot of pain and agony, but he refused to just bow down to his circumstances. He rose above it. But that's rare. Very few people do that. So, um, what are the other books that fits with this? Stephen Covey. It's one of those like real common ones, Seven Habits of Highly Effective People. And the seventh habit is sharpen the saw. So I was like, man, that works real nicely with the Ecclesiastes verse. But anyway, I went on quite the monologue there. Any other thoughts?
Oh no, Paul tells Timothy in First Timothy 6, between verse 6, with godliness with contentment is great gain, and just be
Mm,
happy with food and raiment. So honestly, like you've said it before, it really is just a choice. Sometimes it's not quite as easy for some people, Um, but they just have to keep doing the next right good thing as best they can, uh,
Hmm.
and stay positive. Also, you were saying that people are can't choose the conditions they're born with, right?
Hmm.
And that reminded me of Romans 9 when um, so then it is not of him who wills nor of him who runs, but of God who shows mercy. And then in verse 9, when he says, will you say to me then, why does he still find fault? For he who has resisted his will? But indeed, oh man, who are you to reply against God? Will the thing formed say to him who formed it, why have you made me like this? So a lot of people shake their fists and they look up and they go, why am I like this? But, you know,
Hmm.
that's what you are the way you are. It's just the way it is, you know. I was telling Tanya, um, I'm highly favored and God's just loved me, blessed me since I was born to now. He loves me more than most people. And Tanya's like, I don't think God loves you more than anyone else. And I was like, I would beg to differ. And I really would, you
Hmm.
know, you know what I mean? I mean, I think some people are blessed more than others. I really do. I hate to say it, you know.
You're true to your name. Jacob in the Bible, right? There's an actual verse. Esau have I hated, and Jacob did I love.
Yeah, I mean, I really do feel. I mean, I think that's a fact. You know, I don't think. Um, I think God loves everybody. I really do. I know that. But, um, but let's look at the Old Testament. I mean, and just look at the verse I just read. I mean, Paul even says, "I hardened Pharaoh's heart for a reason." You know, I mean, Pharaoh was just SOL. You know,
Mhm.
that's debate for another day, right?
Yeah, yeah. No, it's very
We'll go to a rabbit hole.
yeah, no, that's a very interesting conversation. And we always come back not really knowing for sure on those kinds of matters. But what you just said is, and I think appropriate for the mentality and the approach that the Apostle Paul takes in First Corinthians 9. I mean, it's one of the top verses in the kind of subject matter that you and I cover. We go to First Corinthians 9 quite often because he says, run as, you know, it's like you're running a race. And he says, they that run in a race, they give it everything they've got. And he says, and they win or they run to win the race. And then Paul says, run as if you're the only one who's going to win.
Mm,
And
mm,
that was his mentality. Now, Paul tried to bring other people with him, obviously, into heaven, but he ran the race as if he was the only one who was going to. And that's similar to the mentality that you just described, having the feeling that you're loved by God more than others. You know,
mm, mm,
it's like that's a bittersweet thing because to whom much is given, much is expected.
mm.
You don't actually, it's actually
It is.
a it's actually a very heavy responsibility, and if that is true, then God's going to also look at you and say, "Hey, I gave you something. I want you to use it for me."
It
That's
is.
the parable of the talents. You know, he gave one guy five, one guy two, one guy one. Well, the
Mm,
guy with the five, he went and doubled what he had. The guy with one didn't,
mm.
and so he took it away from him and he gave it to the other guy.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
When you're given something, you're expected to use it, and why God chooses, one person to give, like me, these rugged good looks, I mean, it just is what it is, but, I have to use it for good, you know?
Amen. Way to end the episode.
Yeah. Well, no, no, this is uh very important stuff, man. I uh don't claim to have perfected any of this, but this mentality is is something that I believe in very much. You know, sharpen your own saw, man. Like you got, if you've been given something, if you've been given a heartache or a struggle in life, you have to learn how to rise above it, you know.
And remember that quote, Abraham Lincoln quote. I liked it from Dusty.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. That's a cool one. Going back to the sharpening of the axe or the saw. We were talking about this in Sunday morning Bible study, and one of my good dear friends raised his hand and he says, you know, it reminds him of a Abraham Lincoln quote, and it was the quote is this: if I'm given 6 hours to cut down a tree, 4 of those hours are going to be dedicated to sharpening the axe. And Jake and I were talking about that in the before we started this episode, and I was thinking about it because we're talking about things like meditation and proper exercises, like exercises for breathing and uh, for sleep, getting better sleep. I
Mhm.
was you going into some of these principles that we're talking about in this episode and talking about how making better decisions, wiser decisions, though it may take time to do it, it does indeed save you time and energy and whatever other commodities that we have to use up, and therefore actually saves you time. So it's the meditating, the prayer, the exercises, the Bible study, you know, the sharpening the saw, the wisdom. And you talk to a lot of people, most people in my experience, they say, well, I don't have time for that. It's like the truth is you don't have time not to do it, you know? So yeah,
Self-care is so important.
yeah,
And, and putting your nose in your Bible, meditating, getting your spiritual, mental, and physical, hydrating, eating healthy. It all goes hand in hand.
yeah. Or think of it this way, if it takes you uh, 8 hours to get if you sleep for 8 hours a night and just, you know, that's what they recommend. So if you're trying to get 8 hours, but you get 8 hours of rotten sleep, would you rather get 8 hours of like sleep apnea, like, you know, like waking up without oxygen? Or if you were to dedicate an hour to doing some exercises, you know, for your palate and all that, which is what I'm trying to do, and get 7 hours of much better sleep, you know, what would you rather have? You know, it's like you're not going to get rejuvenated with 8 hours of bad sleep, but you can get rejuvenated with 7 hours of good sleep. So that 1 hour can save you a lot of time and energy in the long run. So that was one of the ways I was thinking about it. All right, let's wrap this up. Tune in next time, unless there's any last thoughts.
Yes, sir.
Ready? Okay. Tune in next time for another fabulous, exquisite, magnificent episode of Matlock Talk.